Welcome back to my channel. I'm Kelsey Sweet. This is Cultivating Consciousness with the Human Academy. It's December 3rd. It's a new moon. I believe we're going to be having an eclipse as well. This is probably, my fifth attempt at doing this morning meditation. Everything just feels very, very chaotic. I know balancing energies is important. Getting a hold of your emotions is important. Being authentic with your emotions is important. I know there's a lot to talk about here, but I'm not sure exactly where I want to start. Let's see. I have some cards that I'm going to be pulling from the Deviant Moon deck and possibly the Uncommon Tarot as well, just for some general guidance. Because things feel pretty noisy collectively. So let's see, one of the first things that's come up, and a common theme topic that's been coming up a lot, is heartache, abandonment, betrayals, mistrust, the pains. I think this is a lot of the stuff that prevents us from being fully honest with other people. I mean, if we can't be honest with ourselves, how are we going to be honest with other people? There's a lot to stand on. I mean, it's a lot to balance and a lot to have to navigate. But it's nothing that's not impossible. There's a lot of struggles in regards to miscommunication, deaths, new rebirths, things starting over, especially for the collective coming into the seasons. I think this is something to be aware of, just as far as the empire goes, and the state of the empire, the oppressive forces, the oppressive nature of persons in power or masculine powers that are oppressive. There's a lot, this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense grammatically. There's a lot of holding on to structures and ways of being that people perhaps don't want to let go of, different perceptions and ways of seeing, like a battle or a war, but it's not the type of war that we're used to seeing. It's the spiritual warfare that's talked about a lot. It's the underhanded energetics that come into play and the manipulative aspects that come into play, especially when it comes to the words love and people who seem to be loving or caring or whatever. It's always asking yourself, what is the ulterior motive here? Does this person maintain a position of power that they're trying to hold on to? Are they trying to maintain an image or something? What is it that they could be misguiding you on? What vulnerabilities of your own are being played? You have to come out of the woods, come out of the darkness, and see through all the different barriers and all the different aspects that come through. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't willing to do that. The limiting belief systems, the social conditioning that maintains the structures, this is not what people are willing to let go of. In order for these things to be let go of, other things have to dissolve as well. And this is where there's a lot of resistance, because so much of this work is unconscious. And so people are consciously working through the things that they're conscious of, perhaps, or maybe unconsciously working through things they're conscious of, but the unconscious factors are not consciously being worked through. So again, there's these other powers, other things, other players that are bringing things into being and bringing things into the elements that shouldn't necessarily be there. And I suppose this is where my work comes in, because my main focus is on cultivating consciousness, cultivating conscious co-creative behavior, co-creative culture, developing creative behavior in people that is conscientious, right, of what it is that we have to work for towards the future. I mean, things are accelerating in growth across the board. But what does it mean to make these changes and make these adaptations? What does it mean to be an artist in a world where the arts are limited, oppressed, glorified, perhaps in a, how do I want to say it? Like in an ableist way, or glorifying distractions. Let me tap back into some collective energy, because there's a point to a lot of this as far as solutions, or where we're supposed to start looking to get out of all of this. It's all in shadow work, I suppose. But I like this card specifically because it's back to this game, right? And here are these two people battling it out. Who's going to be kinged? But we have our winning piece that's been manipulated, perhaps. You know, because you can get sucked into this chess battle with somebody and into this game with somebody and go on and 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 on, like a game of Monopoly with no clear winners in sight. You know, there's usually a third party or something triangulating the situation. Things aren't very direct. There's always this wall of filters and opinions and layers and sensors within our relationships, right? People aren't being direct with one another. They take these small inklings or perceived flaws and then use those as stepping stones to elevate themselves. But as far as temperance goes, it's learning how to, again, balance out those different sensations and those different things that keep us at war, not only with ourselves, but with each other and within these different cliques, I suppose, right? All these different subgroups under the main group that are all, they're all playing this game. They're all playing this chess game, and nobody's gonna win. I stuck it back into the pile. That's fine. And so, one of the things that keeps showing up in my sphere is this concept that you cannot fight the structure that exists, right, and expect that you're going to bring it down. There's no defeating the monster at his own game in this place. It's not going to happen. It's not designed for there to be winners. You know, the only winner is the person who's designed the game. You know, it's meant to keep you in this box or in this container, right, where you're constantly questioning yourself and your actions and self-monitoring in such a way where it's limiting the creative expression. Like in a panopticon, where you have a prison, in essence, right, with one observer, but you're not sure where this observer is at, other than the fact that they're watching every move that you do. And social media gives us that platform, right, where people can watch everything that it is that we're doing without us knowing that we're doing it, or that we're being watched, or we know that we're being watched, but there's no clear channel, right, or no clear road to that relationship. Everything's leaking, everything's coming to this head of having to tiptoe around the corners, having to walk on glass, and trying to not offend or misinterpret or I don't know. The higher ups are watching, higher vibrational beings, higher beings are watching, right? So whether or not we're in full alignment with ourselves, and we can try to prove it to the material world around us, but how it materializes in this form isn't necessarily the end result, or isn't necessarily the answer. The energetic residue that it leaves is what is important. And this is what we can't escape. There's darkness and hate or anything in that, and that's what you're spreading out there, and it'll eventually catch up with you, or at least catch up with the rest of humanity. We look towards these groups right now, we look towards these gurus and these coaches and these healers and these leaders and these divine masters who can give us the direction and give us the hope, looking for the person to flock all the sheep together, direct everybody, tell us all where to go, right, instead of having to think for yourself throughout this situation. And I'm not sure exactly what point in history it became difficult to think for yourself, but it seems like this is something that's been ingrained into humanity for a while. And so we go within, we do our shadow work, we look at the answers, we do the exploration in new areas and in new realms, right? We're not going to find these new answers out there in the world being concocted and contrived, fabricated in such a way to try and project an image inside of somebody else's head. I mean, it's not sustainable. Not for everybody, right? So what do we do when we're in the hermetic space if we're trying to cultivate a conscious co-creative world? Well, we go in and then we recreate ourselves. It's not so much about the artist making an art piece so much. Maybe the art has gone beyond the physical material thing that the artist makes, right, to where the new art is the person themselves, how they've cultivated themselves, the self-expression, the artist themselves becomes the art piece. It's not so much about, well, I can't say it's not about the work that they leave behind, because it's an extension of the self. But I think what separates an artist from, say, a con artist, right, is somebody who can tap into a pure channel to give across this newly inspired energy, or this bring in a higher frequency, right? A con artist will take the frequencies that exist, or take lower frequencies, put them into the world, anchor them on, and then drag the collective back down, right? And so a person who cannot stand themselves and can't do the work on themselves to go within and acknowledge their own faults and flaws, to be their own critic, right? I mean, how are they going to create something that's going to be tangible for everybody and everything? They're just not. And so I'm I'm listening and being guided to talk about what I want in life, short term, what I want right now in life. And what I want right now in life is partnership and unity, a solid balance. I'd really like a home. I would really like how do I want to put it? Like peace. Peace comes to mind, and finding partnerships that work, and finding partnerships that elevate things from the ground level, that bring things up from the ground level, right, in a cocooning space, in an alchemical way. There's no time frame, there's no time limit on it, but I think it's important to note that if we want something, we have a vision, right? One of the best pieces of advice I've ever got was don't settle. Don't settle for less than you deserve, or less than what you want, or less than what makes you happy. Because how many of us give up? And I'm feeling that energy today a lot. I feel it. I just feel this energy of wanting to give up. Like just knock it all, walk away, just. But then what, right? What are you going to do? Start over again? Give up again and start over? No, like you don't get to give up. It's not your choice to give up, right? There's a duty and there's a purpose. There's something beyond your own ego here, right? Telling you to come out of this cocoon and out of this space and to share the love and share the connections and to unite. And you can't unite and connect with other people, right? If you're in this space where you're hiding out from everything else. There has to be that balance. It's a give and take. It's a reciprocity. It's an energetic exchange, right? And if your energy is dirty or tainted or dusty or clouded or whatever, anything you're exchanging is going to carry forth that energy you have with it. And you can't take it back. Once it's out there, it's out there. You have to reincorporate it, reprocess it, alchemize it, fix it, change it. But it's scary, right? If there's worries, if there's fears. I know in my case, when it comes to speaking my truth, speaking my story, sharing the things that I know, there's fear that exists in this space. An uncertainty, a vulnerability. Because one thing that I've learned in the work that I do, especially outside of this, and the advocacy work that I do as far as sexual assault, when you begin talking about controversial issues that affect everybody, persons who haven't done the work or haven't gone through the healing aspect of it are quick to make threats and are quick to threaten the security of anything that could potentially change, alter, or allow something to collapse, right? The lovers are on top, right? Are we fearing love? Are we fearing connection? I know that there's a scary, vulnerable place when you open up to love, where betrayal happens, or could possibly happen. Again, well, especially in this one, in this deck, there's a snake down here biting this guy, filling him with poison, right? And I think when it comes to relationships and a person that you're drawn to, you need to listen to your own voice and your own guidance. Because if you're listening to the voices of other people who've been jaded or have been hurt by or have had an unsuccessful relationship with somebody, it's difficult to be discerning, right? To know whether or not you're making this choice up for your own or not. What are your value systems that come into play here when you make these decisions? Inner battle between light and dark. If you haven't fully synthesized all aspects of yourself, how are you going to synthesize all aspects of yourself with another person? You can't. At some point or another, you have to listen to voices of authority and people who've come before. Otherwise, it's going to perpetuate this battle. And just because we get into this space of lovers, say, physical intimacy, if we exchange physical intimacy as a means of exchanging energy or pulling energy or receiving energy, then we have to ask ourselves whether or not this act of the lovers is something that is a creative action, or something that will be destructive. It seems nowadays more often than not, the dynamic between the lovers is full of toxicity, and that these shallow connections we build with people as a means to validate our own ego through something like sex, correct? Like, if you're constantly looking to validate your worth or your validity as a male or a female, trans, something in between, however you identify it, see, this is where the conflicts start coming up, right? We're going to start getting picky, we're going to start getting choosy, we're going to start picking apart words, and then we're going to start deflecting back the responsibility and accountability that we should take in order to make these lives something worthwhile, not only for ourselves, but for other people. It's the high priestess. It's listening to the energy of what is being told and what is being given in this space. Oftentimes when it comes to love and finding your lover, finding another person to spend time with in life, we have to do the work. It's not something that's comfortable. I know from my generation exactly, there's been this pressure, right? The princess pressure. It's the arts again. Do the art, make the art, stop second guessing, stop doubting, right? And I think one of the more difficult things about doing this sort of work, or bringing consciousness into the creative space, is this part, right? Is the blood spilled part, is knowing what to cut out and what to cut in. It's not a comfortable space to be in when we're doing the work and when we're forming these relationships, whether or not they're with another person or with the community. There's discomfort that happens, and there's perceived hurts and pains, maybe where it wasn't intended, or in having to cut out a person from your life, or somebody or something from your life that is not healthy or not serving your highest good. I don't know, there's reciprocal energy back from that space, but I'm getting a lot of blocks there, or save that for another reading. There's more details in that space. I'm going to shuffle through this part one more time. Because I think as things begin to shift around us even more drastically, radically, the awareness that limitations for well-being exist or are prevalent or accessible are going to become more so at the forefront of our minds. I think what's coming to mind right now is reading through a comment feed related to my town, my city where I'm at. And there was a lot of questions around like what could make this place better, how could things be better. And there's a lot of focus around things that we can't necessarily change, or around these subtle dynamics where we're trying to put band-aids on things, but nobody again is coming up with solutions. I mean, why would we want to go backwards into anything when we're accelerating forward so quickly? And I think when it comes to a lot of the emotional stuff, because there are a number of people out there in the world doing the healing work on themselves. There are people making things like therapy popular. There's a lot of work, things being done as far as ancestral healing and going back through different lineages, and people doing healings for families and whole communities. And there's a lot of this emphasis, right, on feeling and feeling and feeling and feeling and getting caught up in and exploring these feelings. And these feelings can become so addictive. Like one cocktail after another, after another, after another, that when you feel into and consume so much of these feelings, you become belligerent. At some point or another, you need to know what to keep and what to leave behind, and not to get attached to so many of these things, because sure, there's a lot of pains and heartaches and a lot of things to resolve. But the last step at the end of the journeys and the end of the recovery journeys is the radical acceptance that things can't change and things aren't going to be any different, that this is the way it is, that there's no coping with the pain and with the injustices. If you're going to cope with it, then you're enabling it and tolerating it. That does nothing for nobody. Things suck, and they're hard, and they're difficult. Not for everybody, but maybe, right? It's part of this human experience, and then we've, co-opted the human experience to become something that has to be normalized or a thing or similar instead of unifying. There's no solidarity in things that are popular. That one has showed up in my space too over the last week, and it's true. But you can't bring this to somebody's awareness from the same place of awareness that they're already from. It has to be delivered in a novel way, or has to be delivered in a way that people can receive the information without being triggered by all the other subconscious influences that are playing into the things that are being said and done. King of Swords. If we rule the world like the world is our own, and we take care of the people like it is, then we realize we own nothing. And when I do readings for my table, for people at my table, if you've ever done a reading with me before, you will hear me say, and you'll hear me say this time and time again, I'll write it all over the place, there's no judgment at my table. The card that I have up here, one that's popping up on top, is Judgment. And judgment is something that happens naturally, right? Like, judgment is one of those words that has become very diluted, because we have to make a judgment through our senses in order to engage in a behavior to interact with our world, right? So there has to be that sort of a judgment, the initial judgment. But then there's the judgment of the mind that comes into play, right? Where all of our words, all of the ways that we have conditioned the pictures in our heads to match these words, it distorts everything, and then there she is again, right? Like, then we have an unclear idea of what our words really mean to other people, and then we go throwing out words and saying this and saying that, and drawing blood all over the place. Hurt people hurt people. And if somebody says something to you that is hurtful, it is because they are a hurt person. So what do? Hurt them back? Why? You're hurt, so you're going to go hurt somebody else? Your feelings are hurt, so you're going to go hurt somebody else? Somebody told you no, set up a boundary. Your expectations are blown, you don't get what you want, so you're going to go and throw a fit? Really? I see this a lot. We're beings made of stardust. We have the creative potentials and capacities within us to make things that are unfathomable at this point. If we're to go back a couple of thousand years ago, even less than that, do you really, really think people believe that we'd be getting ready to go to Mars? It's happening. We have to break out of these limiting belief systems and the ways that we think that the world is going to be. The world, everything as it is in its material form, is created by the devil. We have these illusions floating around us and these dark entities around us all the time trying to take us away and take us away from this path. You know? How much negative feedback do you get in a week? How much negative feedback do you get when you step into this power, because you'll feel it? You know what happens when you set a boundary with somebody? If you've been a doormat for a really long time, you give and you give and you give, and all of a sudden you tell somebody no, or you can't do something, or you do something for yourself, you know what happens? They tell you they hate you, they tell you you're selfish and that you're a horrible person and that you can't do anything right because you're not meeting their expectations. Do you believe them? Why would you? I think it's pretty amazing what people are capable of saying to somebody with good intention. And likewise, when somebody has bad intentions, I mean, it's amazing what people will listen to and what people will accept as truth. And your job, again, is discerning how to break through these different barriers and to understand them. Because if we're going to be evolving, right, as a species, as a collective, then we better evolve into a direction that is going to be of our utmost highest good, right? Into the sun, into these difficulties. It's the light body, the light being. This is what I discuss in the Human Academy and within my human projects. It's not human, H-U-M-A-N. I've coined this word human, H-U-E-M-X-N, to try to describe my understanding of what it means to be a light body, to be a being of light, right? If we're Homo sapiens, if in the past we've been sapients who are limited by the physical laws of this reality that has been co-shaped and created over the last few centuries, right? Then we are limited by the laws of nature as they have been defined and described by our predecessors up to this point, right? There's limitations based on the past. But if we're speaking in evolutionary terms, and we're talking about where humanity has the capacity to go next as far as evolution, we're talking about our DNA and our cellular bodies on this sort of a level, right? Then we're talking about everything as a reflection of light, color, essence. It's this luminous aspect that has been given the name the Homo luminous, right? The luminous body who understands the powers or the ideas of consciousness, and that consciousness is light, is energy, is frequency, is all of these things that we can bring into our awareness, bodies, beings, that has the power and the capacity. It's the energy. It's either healing or destructive, but if it has the healing energy, it can heal us, our physical body, the physical forms. We're no longer dependent on the light outside of us to nurture us and to fill us. One of my coaches had made a point to me yesterday, right? She says she channels in the energy to give out to the people. If you understand light, warmth, all of that is an infinite source of energy and potential for creation. You, as an energetic light body channel, have the capacity to bring this energy in, fill it into your space, and then consciously orchestrate your meat suit in such a way where it manifests to its ideal self. Now, because we're in a collective with all these other limiting structures and beliefs pressing down on the collective, right? In order for all of the caterpillar cells of humanity to fade out, us butterfly cells of humanity have to keep feeding into the information, and eventually, we'll get there. Eventually, how long is eventually? I don't know, it's limited by time. What is time? Time is a structure given to this material form. Time is of the essence, but doesn't necessarily matter if we place a value on it. If this takes humans 200 years, if this takes humans 20,000 years, who knows? But I would much rather be of the mindset now that I have the power within me to heal myself, that I can do this on my own without needing the validation, the support, the guidance, the structure of other things around me to validate my existence and to say, sure, you can fit in and do this. Sure, your energy can be co-opted into this in such a way where you can, balance your own energy with ours, and we'll find this harmony, and then you create this dependent thing that if you ever try to extract from it, right, then it just becomes chaos. It's a false belief system. If everybody showed up in this space where they're full cup, full energized, full powered, and this energy is brought together into one, we as a collective, as a human species, can accelerate our evolution much quicker. We see this in technology, so don't tell me that this isn't possible. When it comes to our own consciousness and our own modes of being, right? Anybody who says, no, you can't, no, show me, oh, I have this, all the excuses, I don't want to hear it. It's a page mentality, right? This is a lower end mentality where you're still a student, you're still learning, you're not ready to go out and teach yet, you're not ready to go out and do all these things because you're still battling. There's all this inner conflict. It could be war, it could be chaos, or this could be play, good, bad, or indifferent. There's no structure happening, right? There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of mixed feelings. There's a lot of mixed emotions. And those initial sensations, that initial energy gets messed up and twisted, full of static noise, right? And then we're communicating in a realm of static. What happens if you communicate in a realm of static? You're freaking skating on ice. That's what this guy is doing. You're trying to balance while you're walking on a surface or while you're walking on a foundation that has no grip. So if they say, get a grip on reality, well, what's reality? Because what's my reality is not going to be necessarily the same as yours. However, when we language it all together, my reality and your reality is the same reality if we are all one sharing the same planet. So we're playing semantics. So instead of dividing and being divisive, think unifying, right? Garlic is healer. Keep the vampires away. Keep those energy vampires away. A mentor of mine years ago, before I kind of ventured off into my own venture, artistic business-wise, whatever you want to call that, her warning to me was beware the energy vampires. And another great piece of advice that I had gotten from her: if somebody calls you or calls themselves your mentor, or if somebody walks in and says, hey, I'm a mentor, and they're all about, calling themselves your mentor, chances are they're probably not your mentor. Your mentor, most likely, more often than not, will never claim to be your mentor, right? A mentor is humble. A mentor is not somebody who chooses to be a mentor. A mentor is somebody you find and you discover, and this somewhat benign person offers something, offers a model, or becomes a model, right, for you wanting to become your best version of your highest self. And somebody doesn't get to claim that just because they want to. Sure, I want to be a mentor. I would love to be a mentor for lots of people. Maybe I have been a mentor for some. But I can't walk into a space and be like, hey, I'm your mentor. Let's do these, because who am I? What do I know? I'm going to live by my example. I can tell you every place that I've gone wrong. I can tell you everything that I've done you should not do. I can't tell you what to do. That one's up to you. That one's for you. I think I'm going to pull a couple more out of the other deck and get out of the deviant moon here for a moment, because this just feels like it's getting heavy, but it's real. And something's real when you can feel the weight of it, when you can feel the pressure of it. It exists. It's something tangible that you can hold. Just let it go, Kelsey. Just let it go. Set this one off to the side. Hold an intention in mind. What is something that you would like to know, that you would like guidance on? Okay. Something for the community. A blind spot, perhaps. And a North Star. A direction to keep in mind as we move forward. The North Star card that came out is the Sun. The Sun card. Which is perfect. The Sun is a star. It's up. It's up there. You can look north, east, south, and west, and if it's daytime, you'll feel the sun, but you know where that sun is. Okay? You are light, a light child, a being of light. There's nothing that separates us from the sun. You feel it, don't you? The warmth, the heat, the energy. It's right there. Could be light years and light years away, like so many other things. But I see it now. I feel it now. It's right in front of me now. It's not something that exists light years away. It exists now. Because if it didn't exist now, and if it didn't exist light years in the past, if it's not going to exist light years in the future, none of this life would exist around me now. Let's do the community card first. A Two of Cups, a bravery, lion. If you're eyeing a golden lion, I don't know, there's a gold lion out there. Masculine, feminine energies, everything brought together, things harmonizing within the community. It's balance. There's something about community that comes out of relationships. If relationships didn't exist, if there wasn't a coming together of men, women, everybody in between, right? If that didn't exist, community wouldn't exist. So thank the people that you come across in the world that are walking around you just for being there and existing, because if they didn't exist, neither would you. There'd be no community. It's full cups, but what I like about this one too is they're both holding their own cup. He's got his, she's got hers. Hang on, bub. Almost time to sign off. They're carrying their own emotional baggage. They're carrying their own emotional weight. They're not giving it to somebody else. They're taking accountability and responsibility for themselves and for their own healing and for their own actions. They're not putting that on somebody else. They're not projecting that on somebody else. They're not misusing words in such a way to try to reorient the perceptions of other people. It's just not happening, huh? And so our last piece, the individual piece, the Five of Cups. Fives have to do with change. It's a tension point. It's a mediating point. It's a middle ground. You know, we either go back or we go forward, right? We either close our eyes and go back to sleep or we wake up. We're at the precipice. We're at this middle point now where everything we do, now that we're aware of our responsibilities to humanity, is more important than it ever has been before. Cups, again, are emotions. Finding the balance in emotions. What do you keep? What do you let go of? What do you leave behind? You can be in the emotional waters. You can be halfway in and you can still access the sun. You can be here and not drown. Emotions are not a bad thing. It's not bad if you have emotions. It is not bad to cry, male or female. Because I know men get a lot of rap for crying, but women do too. You know, women are allowed to cry, but as soon as you cry as a woman, you're labeled and you're put into this category. So you got to be super careful. You're, labeled a crazy woman because you expressed an emotion, even though it's normal for women to express emotions, but because it's normal for us to express emotions, we should have no emotional problems, right? Whereas men, it's not normal for men to express emotions, so when men express emotions, even if it's not an authentic emotion, they're being applauded and awarded for expressing an emotion that is being punished upon the other sex. I mean, it's just not fair. There's no fairness. There's no balance if there's not fairness, right? And how beautiful was it? I don't know what star it was or what actor or whatever, what little clip I came across this morning. But it was a man, and he was talking about something difficult. And he starts off part of this interview being asked a difficult question, and he starts to choke up, and he's like, if I talk about this, I'm probably going to cry. And not because it's sad. He had to give the disclosure. Not because it's sad, but because it's a beautiful moment. So we have to disclose to people why we're crying and then give it reason and then validation in order for it to be socially accepted, if it's socially accepted for it to happen in the first place. Do you see where this is wrong? So purge your emotions, do your work, figure your shit out, figure out where your inner balance is. Get your wholeness together for you and for yourself, so that when you connect to the community, you're not asking or wanting or feeling like you're missing something. You know, when you choose one thing over another and then you feel like you're missing out because you can't have it all, you can't cry over that. Right? If anything, cry over your awareness, that you're coming to an awareness that your decisions aren't quite in alignment with your values. And if your decisions aren't in alignment with your values, then you've got some deeper work to do and you have some behavioral changes to make. So, I think on that note, I'm going to close out this space, close down my channel, go tend to my child. Take a moment, breathe. Clear some of this out, right? Process.